Hi, I'm Marielle, and in this tutorial I'll teach you how to use the Sparklery Particle System widget that lets you create your own particle effects and add them to your streams. I'll teach you how to set it up and what all the different settings do so you can make awesome effects yourself. Let's go! So, you go to StreamElements.com and click Login. You connect with Twitch. So you essentially log in with your Twitch credentials. You might need to give Twitch permissions or something. But when you get here, you go to Streaming Tools, Overlays, and here, if you already have some widgets, you'll have them here, but you click New Overlay. So here's your new widget. For overlay resolution, you could use these other settings, but most likely you're using 1080p for your OBS, so that's what you want. You can name this. Let's call it Sparklery Test. And now down here, you click the plus icon, Static Custom Widget, and it opens this default widget. You don't need to care about the settings except for position, size, and style down here. You want to set this to 1920 and 1080, so it covers the entire screen. You leave the top and left as 0, and now you have a widget that spans your entire screen. Now, back to settings. You open the editor. This is where your code will go. So you got this zip file that you can now extract right here. And here you have the instructions, read the README and the custom widget setup files, by the way. They should have pretty much the same content that I'm explaining to you here. So if you need that in a written form, check those out. The other files, you have HTML, CSS, JS, and JSON that nicely correspond to these 4 tabs here. So you open these up, you can open them in Notepad or whatever you have, and you copy and paste HTML to HTML tab, CSS to the CSS tab, and you can guess where the rest of this is going. JS goes to JS tab, and the only kind of an exception, fields, is where the JSON content goes. Just copy and paste, and here you go, and you click done. So here you have the widget. There's some default values set up, but you can start changing these right away. First of all, the general settings. This is basically what the free version will have, just the presets and a few other settings. We have a few presets here, just to kind of showcase what the system can do. They will override any other settings below. So if you set any of these, you won't be able to change anything aside from the general settings, just so you know that. So make sure this is set to none if you want to make your own particles. You can change the particle color to anything you want, and you can change the background. So if you want to get rid of the background, you change this to transparent, and now only the particles will be visible. You can also add a bit of blur. Sometimes, for example, let's see, here it might look nice if you add a little bit of blur like this. You don't want to add too much, it starts getting, well, too blurry. At some point you won't really see anything, especially if your particles are very small, so you usually want to keep that to, I don't know, something between 1 to 3 maybe. And also, if you only want particles on the edges of your screen, you can add a mask here, either an oval or a rectangle mask. So now let's move to the other settings. First of all, let's turn this to none, otherwise our changes won't do anything, and let's remove the blur as well, just so we can see the particles properly. So first, there's particle settings, there's shape. You can pick triangle, square, polygon, or star. And if you pick polygon or star, the polygon sides will control how many sides or points your particle has, like that. Now the polygon also has 7 sides. A bit of a special case is character here. You can change the font to anything you want. You can pick what words or characters there are. If you, for example, want your name to be floating around, that's how it works. So anything separated by space will be shown as its own particle. So for example, if you split this, now all the characters are just floating around. You can also use any special characters or symbols, like let me copy paste one here. So now you have these sparkles floating around instead, and there's a lot of symbols you can use. You can use basically anything. And the best thing, you can use emotes. So if you, for example, want to add a lot of food here, let's pick a few. There we go. Oh yeah, now they are all treated as one particle, but let's separate them. And now you have a bunch of food floating around. You can use any emotes that you can find in the emote menu, so it's great. But now for now, maybe let's stick to circles for now. So next is the amount of particles. It's not an exact amount because new particles are constantly generated and they also disappear. But you can change this value, find a density that you like. You don't want to go super far. It starts getting a bit crowded, and at some point the system might also start getting a bit laggy if you add like 1,000,000 particles. So let's stick to a nice 100 for now. So from here, let's move to outline. You can add an outline to your particles. Like now you can see there's a small white outline. You can make it bigger. Now there's a really thick outline. You can change the outline color. So if you want like a, let's say, dark red outline, there we go. And the opacity as well, if you want it to be just a, I don't know, half size or something. Or, I mean, you can just remove it, but then there's no point of really having it. Either setting outline width or opacity to 0 means that there won't be an outline. So let's set it for 1 for now. The opacity of the particles will change between 0 and 1. So you can, for example, if you set both of them to 1, then all of your particles will be fully visible. And if you want only some of them to slightly be more transparent, you can see now some of them are slightly transparent. And that's how it works. If we set it to 0, and then opacity change speed, if you set it to something way bigger, now you can see how they flicker. The outline will always stay visible still though. Let's put that back, and actually let's get rid of the outline as well. That's slightly distracting. Next up, the size. You can have really tiny particles if you set the minimum to, I mean, you can set it to 0 if you'd like, really. And you can have really massive particles. Look, yeah, even this big if you want. I mean, you could have probably even. Let's see what happens. Yeah, you don't really want that. You don't really probably want much more than 100, but it depends on your needs. Let's put it back for now. This was a good demo size. And also, actually, never mind. Let's make that really small, because next we want to show the size change speed. So if the size change speed is 0, then the size won't change. And if it's something really big, let's say 10, you can see how they grow and shrink. So that's also something you can affect. Now next up, we have the movement settings, and you can have your particles moving many different ways. Their speed, now you can see they're now kind of floating slightly aimlessly. But if we add a lot of speed, now they start going into random directions much faster. You can change the direction, so they can go pretty much any direction here, also diagonal directions. So you can try these out however you like. And also you can see the particles as now there's some variation. They are approximately going to the same direction, but there's some variation. If you want to remove that variation, you check move straight, and now they will all move exactly in the same direction. You can rotate the particles. Well, if it's a circle, it's not going to be much help, but if we change this to, say, a triangle, it will be much easier to see. Let's say 45 degrees, and now each particle has rotated 45 degrees. And if you don't want them all to be rotated exactly the same, you can add varying rotation. So you can see now there's a bit of variation in there. And now if you want them to turn around, there's 2D rotating movement. There we go. They are now rotating slowly. Actually, I'm gonna show you the rotation speed down here, just if we want to add a little bit of more speed in there. There we go. There we go. Also, the varying rotation also affects the speed, so some of them will move slower or faster. If we remove this, now you can see how they all spin at the same rate. And you can choose between clockwise and counterclockwise. Now, on top of the 2D rotating movement, there is also this kind of a tilting 3D rotation that you can add. And now this is how they start spinning all over. Sometimes this might make your particles look a bit bigger than they originally were, so you might want to change your particle size. But that's basically all of the movement settings. And finally, when you're done, you click Save here. I mean, you probably want to do this several times while you work so you don't lose anything. And then you click Copy Overlay URL. And this is the link you will then add into the browser source in OBS. There's one more setting you need to know about. So when you add the widget as a browser source in OBS, remember to right-click the source and go to Blending Method and sRGB off. Otherwise, the transparency will look really weird, but that fixes it, so remember to check that. And there you go. Play around with the settings, have fun with it, and if you find any bugs, let me know, I'd love to fix them. So yeah, have fun!